If you've ever tried them and felt like a failure when they don't stick, you're not the problem. The system just wasn't made for you.
You're listening to Overwhelmed Working Woman, the podcast that helps you be more calm and more productive by doing less. I'm your host, Michelle Gauthier, a former overwhelmed working woman and current life coach. On this show, we unpack the stress and pressure that today's working woman experiences. And in each episode, you'll get a strategy to bring more calm, ease, and relaxation to your life.
Hi, friend. Today we're talking about productivity and why the 5 a.m. club won't save you. If you don't know what the 5 a.m. club is, it's essentially the concept that if you want to be at all successful in life, you need to do it by getting up at 5 a.m. every morning and doing very specific things. Now, I'm not saying that that doesn't work. That may very well work, and I think does work for lots of people. But if that doesn't work for you personally, then it's a waste of your time and energy to try to implement something like that. So today you're going to learn why no productivity method works for everyone, why copying someone else's routine usually backfires, and then I'm going to give you some key questions to ask yourself to find out what actually works for you and how to stop forcing yourself into a system that doesn't fit your life or your energy. Why doesn't this concept of the 5 a.m. club work for everybody? Every system, any system out there, you pick one, works for some people with a certain kind of brain. If you've ever tried them and felt like a failure when they don't stick, you're not the problem. The system just wasn't made for you. It doesn't take into consideration what kind of brain you have. Do you have a neurotypical brain? Are you super creative? Do you need more structure? When do you have the most energy? Are you a morning person? Are you an evening person? Two of the clients who I worked with in this past week were feeling sort of defeated and overwhelmed and feeling like they weren't getting up early enough and just weren't getting enough done. So I'm going to give you a couple questions that you can ask yourself to figure out what works for you. Question number one is, when do I naturally have energy? So for example, you will know right off the bat if you are a morning person or an evening person. Earlier this week, my client was telling me that her most energetic time of the day is 10 p.m., and I almost fell out of my chair because if I had to do anything that required my brain at 10 p.m., it just absolutely would not work. I naturally have energy in the morning. I'm a good fit for the 5 a.m. club, in fact. And she was saying, oh, I probably should get up earlier, but no, what we ended up deciding is she should not get up earlier. She should take better advantage of the time at 10 p.m., when she does naturally have energy. So think about that. When is your best energy? And then plan your hardest tasks where you need to use the most creativity or the most brain power around when you do have that energy. The next question to ask yourself is, what is working about my current routine? So even if you're feeling frustrated, like you're not getting enough done, it's very unlikely that you're literally getting nothing done during the day. So what is working and what should you keep during your day? So for example, one of the things that I do, I have a whole system for managing my email, which I will tell you about in a separate episode because it's something that I've been talking to my clients a lot about too, and I want to talk about that specifically. But for example, I go through my email inbox on Mondays, and I have a whole process that I go through, and that really works for me. So that is totally working. Another thing that really works for me is that I schedule my clients. When you're my client, you have a specific time that we meet every week. So you know every Wednesday at 10 o'clock, you're having a meeting with me. And if that needs to change, you can text me and we'll move it. But that level of structure works for me, with the exception if we need to change things. So when I think about those things, I really have the vast majority of my week is already in the working category. So as you're trying to figure out what type of routine works for you, focus on what is already good and what you should keep. And then the last question to ask yourself is, how much flexibility do I need? And what I mean by that is, I think people need a certain amount of structure. When I have tried in the past to do a complete time blocking where every single thing on my to-do list has a time on the calendar very specifically, and I can break it down by 15 minutes, that is too much structure for me. But I really like and need structure. So for me, I would say I'm about like an 8 out of 10 on the structure scale. but I want to have some flexibility built in there. I had a client named Carrie. There's an episode that she recorded on the podcast. We'll link that in the show notes. She's an artist. She's a graphic designer, so she has a very creative mind. So when she came to me, she was feeling stressed about how much work she was and how much more work she wanted to get done, but feeling resistant to the structure. And what we figured out was, even though she's an artist, it was good for her to have about a 5 out of 10 structure. So we came up with rules for what time she should get to her office in the morning. The first thing she did was a morning routine. When she gets new clients and they want an estimate from her, she puts an hour on her calendar to get started on that because the getting started part was hard. So she implemented structure to the level that felt good to her. So are you a 2 out of 10 structure person? Are you a 10 out of 10 structure person? Another client who I was talking to just today said, I really have always wanted to be a 10 out of 10 structure person, but I think I'm actually a 5. So I spent all this time trying to create this structure, but I really crave just a little more freedom in my day. So think about, for you, if a 10 is the ultimate, totally structured, and a 1 is no structure whatsoever, which one actually works for you in terms of productivity? And then what does that mean for the kind of work that you do and the kind of life that you lead? The moral of the story today is that the 5 a.m. club totally works for some people, and that the 9 a.m. club also totally works for some people. There is a structure out there that works for you, and it starts with you knowing a couple things about yourself. When are you naturally most energetic? How does your brain work best? And how much structure do you feel like you need? I help my one-on-one clients with this all the time. If this is something that you feel like you're struggling with, set up a discovery session with me to learn more about one-on-one coaching. Thanks for listening today. And don't forget, by the way, that I have a quiz. Well, the link is in the show notes. I have a quiz that will help you figure out why you're feeling overwhelmed. Time management may be the reason why you're feeling overwhelmed. Take the quiz and find out more. Not only does it tell you what the problem is, but it gives you some potential solutions, worksheets, videos you can watch, podcast episodes that I recommend to solve your problem. Thanks and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Overwhelmed Working Woman podcast. If you want to learn more about my work, head over to my website at michellegothier.com. See you next week.